All right, welcome to Camp Okayest, powered by X2 Power, X2 batteries. You can find your local Batteries Plus store. This is great about lithium-powered batteries that you don't have to order by mail or wait for. You can get them serviced, whatever. It's cool. Check out X2 Power to power anything you have in the outdoors. Welcome to episode number 1. This is the very first, very beginning. Camp Okayest. I'm your host, Shaun Ridder. Joining us, as you can see on screen, do we call him the godfather of everything okay at this point?
I don't think that's appropriate. I don't know. I don't want to be that. Yeah, I'm not a kingpin.
All right. Eric Clark, Okayest Hunter. This is what started it all. I mean, so this being episode 1, we thought it would be a great idea. I mean me, to really kind of kick things off and what this show is and the background and idea behind it with you, and kind of the next, I don't call it the next generation or the transformation of Okayest Hunter, but everything started as Okayest Hunter, and there's all kinds of other brands and other podcasts involved in this Okayest podcast network, and Eric runs that, and he's a pretty okay guy. So, I mean, I guess let's just start for those that are just joining my show and don't follow or keep up with Okayest Hunter, which I don't know why you wouldn't have started there in the first place. Kind of how the whole process came about and why and where we are here today.
That's a good question. I might just ask you that question because, I think you had the idea to approach me and kind of get this thing going. And this is the first time I've been on the first episode of one of these. So everyone else that's been doing them kind of been doing their thing. So this is kind of a neat start or a shotgun start. But I don't know. I mean, we launched Okayest Hunter in 2020, did our thing. It's a ton of fun. We have a good time. We have a very okay mantra, if you will. I pull a lot of values from Stoicism, and just try to, doing the right thing is always the right thing. And that seems to have resonated or struck some sort of chord. And somewhere along the way, Greg Tubbs, who also is a host on the Okayest Hunter podcast, he just loves fishing too. So when hunting season's done, he's like, man, we should really do some fishing stuff. And then when fishing season's done, he's like, man, no one cares about fishing. We should really do some hunting stuff. So he's it cracks me up because I've been through 2 seasons of this with him now where he's done this. But he really pressed hard to do a fishing podcast. So the network was born out of Greg literally twisting my arm to do a podcast about fishing. And I was like, well, if you're going to do one, we already own the brand Okayest Fisher. We could do that. And so we launched that. And then once that happened, someone else reached out and was like, hey, actually, it was the Up Duck podcast, which Tyler Meaden, who's my co-founder in this whole business, was like, man, I really want to get back into podcasting. He used to do a podcast about upland dogs and dog training called the Off Lead podcast. And then he's like, I really miss that. We should do it again. We had this other brand called Up Duck, or I think we're like, what we should call it? It's called Up Duck. We were going to call it Ducklander because we're trying to mix like upland and waterfowl. Ducklander is already taken. It's a call company. I didn't know that until he called me and was like, hey, that's my name. I was like, oh, my bad.
Whoops.
And then I was like, well, Ducklander is a little too polished for us anyways. Up Duck sounds more like on brand for, imbuing okay stuff. After that, then Elizabeth Brownell reached out and was like, hey, I'd like to join your network. I was like, well, we don't really have is this a network? Like, what do we like? I haven't had anyone outside of our 4 walls, so to speak, reach out. And so I was like, all right, well, let's figure this out. This could be fun. So we launched her podcast called The Onset. And then after that one launched, then it happened again. Like people just kept reaching out to us, asking if they could join. And I've been podcasting since 2013. So I've also put together a group on Facebook. Not that anyone cares about Facebook groups, but it's a very
Hey, come on. The 45 plus crowd loves Facebook.
Well, I'm getting to that age. So, I have this community of folks that just help each other in the outdoor podcasting community around like, hey, I got this tech issue, or how do I do this lighting thing, or someone know this guest, or all that kind of stuff. And so I really have tried to foster a positive community, and rather than be like a competitive, mine is better, don't compete with me, or I'm going to eat your lunch. Like, there's lots of room for lots of us, and everyone's podcast, even if if someone else did Okayest Hunter and had the same exact name, it would be 100% different because they're their own unique human being with their own lens on the world. So, I think there's just lots of room for people to share their message, and podcasts are fun. They're a lot of fun. It's a good relationship builder. I talk a lot about ROR, return on relationship. We met by doing a podcast. I was on the radio show or the tailgate talk that you'd done at the
Mhm.
studio a long time ago. Feels like
Yeah,
you've been in studio here. Like, it's very interesting. So yeah, this will be the 10th podcast on the network, Camp Okayest, and I think I'm just going to kind of pause there for a minute because I need to kind of get my bearings with all this stuff. Every time we add a new one, my workflow changes, and it's kind of like, don't you have like a routine? No, not yet. I don't know what the hell's going on.
and you've got, like, a normal, like, actual job that you do each and every day too, so, like, on top of that, you
Yeah.
know, you mentioned, like, podcast starting, there's thousands every single day that launch, and the stat that I saw was that the average only gets to 6 episodes, and that's
Yeah,
it.
people realize it's a lot of work. It's hard to manage schedules, stay consistent, find guests. There's a lot of different types of podcasts and reasons to do one. We have a very for me, this is just part of my life now. I love it. So, I don't even know what I'd say my reason is anymore. But like, if your reason is to just simply create content, or if your reason is to get sponsors, or if your reason is to build relationships, or if your reason is to you're not going to become the Joe Rogan. Like, that's just not going to
No,
happen.
no,
If you're doing it for sponsors, good luck. They're getting their doors knocked on every day by every, Tom, Dick, and Harry that starts a podcast and they're 3 episodes in. Like, you gotta be mindful of the fact that that's probably not gonna work out. You're gonna have to put some time and effort in over time. If you're doing it to build relationships, it's a great tool. If you're doing it for content, it's also another great tool. Um, you're definitely not gonna quit your day job doing this. Like like, it's not gonna make you rich either. So,
no.
you gotta just love connecting with people and talking about the things that y'all are passionate about, and I think that's exactly what we're doing here. So
Yeah, and that's basically the whole concept when we came up with this. So, you mentioned the show that I used to do. So I spent 20 years in broadcast media, and I've worked in the country music industry and all kinds of stuff. And along the lines there, I launched an outdoor show that was on the FM, spread throughout the state of Wisconsin, and it was a podcast. Obviously, when you work for a large major corporation, I know we hinted on this when I was in studio with you guys on the Okayest Hunter, that like once you leave that major corporation, they keep everything. Like they keep all that, like you're gone. And I was very mindful and thought of that when I came up with the name and everything, which I did really love the name of that show that I created. And that show still exists. It's still carried on without me after I've parted ways with that company. But I wanted to take the time, and I always knew that I was going to keep doing this because I enjoy having conversations with people and allowing others to be a part of the conversation.
yep.
What I think is cool about podcasts like what you guys do with Okayest Hunter and a few of the other ones that I follow and listen to is the fact that it's almost like you get to be a fly on the wall. All right. So you're like hearing it in a conversation, but within a conversation amongst people, it's always going to go off the rails in different directions. And there's always going to be little nuggets of like tips, tricks, fun stuff, anecdotes, just little moments that you're always going to take away from it. And so I love having those conversations and then being able to share that with others to kind of be the fly on the wall in the room because I find myself all the time having these crazy ass conversations that I was like, I wish someone else was here to hear this because that was awesome. Like that was
Yeah.
hilarious. Or wow, that was a really cool tip. Like I bet you nobody else knows about that. And so, that's kind of where I thought of this is I wanted to extend on that whole we're all just okay at things. And there's always a place for, like you guys really focus on hunting and Okayest Hunter. Greg and those guys focus on fishing and Okayest Fisher. While I'm basically far more of an angler than I am a hunter. I've done a lot of things, been a lot of spaces. I mean, I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So like Door County, all of that has been my bread and butter. I'm a smallmouth guy. Like this is probably why I love fishing there. But again, we did a lot of walleye fishing too. Um, I got into waterfall hunting huge when I turned 16. Like we were big water, Great Lakes, like layout boats, hunting diver ducks. I mean, I've done it all. So I was I was the person always like, I'm not going to be a deer waiter. I'd rather be a duck hunter. You know what I mean? Because
Yep.
it felt
Yep.
like, and I say that and it sounds like a negative, but at that time it was like, I don't want to just like sit there and like never see anything. It's more fun to just like see stuff flying all over. And I think there's a progression in age, maturity, and just in patience, where eventually you're like, actually, this isn't so bad to just sit in peace and silence and have nothingness. And I'm like, okay, maybe bow hunting is something I can get into. And then
Yeah.
I kind of got into that. It's like I kind of dabble. You mentioned how Greg's always like, I'm all about fishing now. And then hunting seems like everybody cares about hunting and not about fishing. I kind of find myself doing that. And I feel like the average person that loves things in the outdoors, if they hunt and fish, they do kind of do the same thing. And so I want to be a space for everything at all times. Like it's never pigeonholed into like we're going to talk only about fishing or only about hunting. There's camping. I love to cook. I've been called a food snob, what is it? Food elitist. Yes. Okay, I'll go with that too. So there's like all kinds of cooking and food and just trying to be a good person. Like at the end of the day, that's all we're trying to do. We're all just okay at everything. And if we're 1% more okay tomorrow than we were today, then we're making progress. And that's what it's about. And I want like this space to be a place where everyone can come and gather like we're just hanging around the bonfire. Like we're at camp, we're at hunt camp, we're at fishing camp, we're on the campsite, just telling stories, shooting BS, and, that's the general feel of what's gonna be here, and, like, even already, we just talked about how you launched this whole network and getting into podcasting. There's tips and, like, snippets into there that people can learn from if they wanna start their own podcast, they wanna start doing their own thing or find their own place in the outdoor space. It like you said, you're like, "Don't think you're gonna be Joe Rogan or don't think spot" like, I think that just little pieces of advice there sometimes people do need to hear to know, like, it does take a lot of work, and
Yeah.
there is a lot that
Yep.
goes behind it.
Yep. Yeah, it is, and and it's okay. There's a lot of people with really strong work ethics that aren't going to shy away from work. It's just one of those things where like it's like the first time something else comes up and you have a schedule conflict with your life or work and the podcast will almost always take a back seat.
Mhm.
And at least for how I've rolled it up in my life, it's actually maybe quite an opposite problem. But like we've bricked Tuesday nights. Like Tuesday nights are known in our entire family, extended family, as Podcast Tuesday. Kids go to grandma's. It's a whole thing. Like it's not. It's it's like, oh, we got to check the calendar. We can't take this vacation because we got to plan it around a Tuesday. I mean, it's gotten to this extreme level, and it should to some degree because now we're treating it more like a business, and we have partnerships and contracts. I'm like, well, I can't just gaff it off, you know.
Yeah.
And I used to just record willy nilly whenever, and then I would have the interview recorded, and then I would be like, well, I'll publish it later, I'll edit it later, and like because now I'm done with that one part that I had to be dedicated to, instead of get back to the family or my wife and be like, well, I'll get that other part done later, and then it wasn't consistent, and consistency is like a big deal. I At some point, I think in 2019, I was like, well, what if I did this for every Tuesday for a whole year? What would happen? And that here we are. This is what's happened.
And that's like you say it, that's the other part. So this show is going to be Thursdays. Thursday nights are gonna be the Camp Okayest. So then, we'll do it, eventually it will be a full live stream, like actual live in person,
Yeah,
phone
that's
calls,
cool.
everything like you guys do. So Thursday nights will be our night. But for now, it's gonna be like we'll be recording Thursday. It may be live like on our Instagram page, but like
Yeah.
not YouTube yet because you gotta hit subscribers, blah blah blah. By the way, at Camp Okayest on all the socials. Go subscribe, go follow. That way we can get to that mark faster. Um, but otherwise, like Friday is kind of the idea that like the show can be on the podcast, on all the podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify or iTunes or whatever you listen to, that it can be there as you go into the weekend, going to camp. There it is. Camp OKS is there to get your weekend kicked off. So
Yep.
like Fridays is, kind of like think about it like Fridays, like, oh, on my way to camp, we can join camp here, whatever. So that's kind of the idea behind the whole camp OKS part as well. So
Yeah,
going into this show, I've got absolutely no platform, by the way, of what we're gonna talk about, like, today
that's kinda
specifically.
great. It's funny because like, you and I are both pretty creative, and we're both pretty savvy with technology, and we went back and forth on naming conventions for far too long, and
Yes.
not that's a bad thing, it was like I love that exercise, and so Camp OKS, I've had a few people ask like, "Oh, is it about camping?" I'm like, "Well, kinda, like, maybe." It's about a lot of things. So I'm excited to see where it goes for you, and I like that you're not boxed in, you're not painted into a corner, like, I'm happy that it's an open platform, and, we have such a I wouldn't say eclectic, is that the word? We have a
Eclectic, I would say it's eclectic.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just a group of folks that are on this, I've been calling it a family podcast or a network. I think the family podcast sounds kind of a little bit more to what I would want it to feel like rather than some buttoned up network, if you will. But I mean, a lot of these guys are business owners. Some are college professors. Some are guides out west. Some are come from the AI technology world, but they're trapping. Like it's such a some are like blue collar, like a Greg and Derek's a teacher. Like there's just such a really cool group of people in this network in and of itself. I mean, a lot of these shows have anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 hosts that will come in and out of it. I think the Upduck guys, some of those guys are engineers. It's just we have a really good group of people just in this family of podcasts that we could speak to on a regular basis, and we could never run out of content about fun things to talk about. Um, I really have been enjoying that part of this and getting to make new friends like yourself and everyone else because now we have a WhatsApp chat thing, which not we need any other freaking apps to go chat about stuff amongst ourselves. But I wanted something that wasn't Facebook, that was its own. I have one like group in WhatsApp and it's this one and that's it. I've never used WhatsApp before, but I asked some of the folks in the group, I'm like, hey, what can I use to bring us all together? So if we need to ping each other about stuff, we can just know to check that app. And even that's been kind of cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I'm the same person. I hate being like anytime in like business in the past, even now, someone's like, "Oh, you got to download this new app." I'm like, "I don't want another stinking stop.
I was really
Stop.
struggling with that. Yeah.
I don't want or need any more crap on my phone." Oh, but yeah, no, it is nice to have that in the one spot because exactly that. It's not I'm going like onto Instagram, I have to like sort through everything to get to the spot that I want to go to. WhatsApp is the okayest app to me. Like that, I don't even call it WhatsApp. It's okayest.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
kind of how I
okayest
feel
chat.
about it. It's the podcast thing, and it's like if I get a notification there, it's the one spot I'm like, "Ooh, who's talking? What do we got to say?" Like I get excited. Like people are using this thing. This is great.
There'll be plenty on there
Um,
from this morning you can go through and get yourself caught up, but
oh, great. Yeah, I haven't checked it out yet. It's
a
been a
lot
slow
of the other
morning.
hosts that's kind of the plan too as well. A lot of the other hosts, a lot of shows will join me here so we can talk about the things that they like to talk about, and it's a way to expose all of the people in our family and the other shows in our family to other places because there's people that know me as like the kayak fishing guy, may come here to check that out, but don't know of all these other things and may discover something else really cool. And I love doing that and sharing and introducing people to things and showing people cool things. I mean, that, since 2020, I've, really been focused on content creation and YouTube. I got a YouTube channel. It really focuses on kayak fishing, but it's like not just the like stereotypical, like watch me fishing. Like there's some of that, like I'll like do my tournaments, like I'll record
Yep.
there and kind of break down. And I like to share like why I did things in it. You know what I mean? Because, like, that's something when I watch people, like, you watch people fishing, whatever. It's always like highlight reels, like, "Oh, everybody catches big," but, like, I wanna know, like, what's in your head? Like, what are you thinking? Why did you do that? Why did you throw that bait? Why even if it was wrong, even if it was, like, the wrong decision, to know why you made that decision. That helps someone like me, and I like to share it with other people because I think that's a way to help people grow or introduce to it. I think I've told you this story, Eric, back when I had my kid who's now 6. The first 3 years of his life, I, like, gave up hunting, fishing, everything I walked away from. I didn't do it at all for 3 years, and before that, I was fishing co-angler in, like, Bass Nation, BFL type stuff. That's when I was, like, big into waterfowl hunting.
Okay.
Just completely walk away. I didn't do any of it, and then when I 3 years later was like, "Okay, I'm ready to get back into it," like, no shitting, like, I felt intimidated a bit. Like, everything's just become, like, such perfectionism, and everything's so perfect, and if you don't know everything and don't do everything right, like, you're made to, like, feel like you suck and you shouldn't even do this, and it's just the way like, it'll beat you down, and it shouldn't be that way, like, we all should be able to just enjoy doing things in the outdoors, even if it's just taking a hike, it's
Some
walking through the
people
woods.
forget that they had gone through those things
Right.
too. Even if they went through when they were 12,
Yeah.
they still went through them. And then there's this error that comes like, "Well, did you know this or you didn't know that or what about this?" It's like, "Well, sure, but I have to learn that stuff too, and you don't have to make me feel bad about it."
Right, and I've done all that, and I'm coming back in and feeling like I'm all the
Still,
way back there,
yeah.
and I know that me going through that experience is when it hit me, I was like, "I'm not alone. I bet there's a ton of people that are in the same spot," and that's when I'm like, "Okay, I wanna share this journey. I wanna share this out there," and that's how I got into creating the YouTube. That's really how I pushed forward in the other show that I did, and, like, the YouTube stuff I still continue, and a lot of it I focus on, like, DIY and stuff, and I've kind of prided myself on, not being the guy that has the fanciest of everything all the time. And yeah, there's 2 Garmin graphs you see behind me here, like, I just this year upgraded to
Yeah.
live scope, and, like, I've
It's a
got the old
progression.
version.
It's a progression. You
Right,
don't
and
just
that's it.
show
Of
up there.
showing the progression I'm at, and I'm showing different ways that you can kinda hack things and make things work. Like, I literally just shared, like, a tip, and I also work with Okayest Fisher, with Greg and those guys,
Yep.
so if you follow them on Instagram, you'll see my face in there a lot. I kinda do a lot of their tackle tips and, we collab on a lot of that stuff. I literally shared one this week on, like, nail weights. Alright, so if you're
Hmm.
familiar with what a nail weight is in the fishing, it's basically a little piece of lead you stick into the bait, which can cause weight to it. Certain techniques, you use nail weights for. Nico rig, the way I like to rig a Berkeley Gilly, uses a nail weight. But you often like you push them in the plastic, it may get worn, falls out. So a lot of times guys will put like super glue and push it in. I was like, why the hell are we wasting money on these things? Like they're expensive. It's $5 for like what, 5, 6 of them sometimes. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm going through my toolbox and I've got a bunch of screws laying there. I'm like, it's like the same size. You can screw them right in. So I literally like shared that of like, why are we wasting money on nail weights? You can literally go to the hardware store for pennies on a dollar, get all these
That's
screws,
great.
and they screw it and hold in better. Like, no brainer. And
Yep.
it's little things like that that I like to share that, because there are people out there that are constricted by budgets, constricted by time, and we're all just trying to do our damned best
Yeah,
with
when
what we
you're out
have.
there, you the everything else fades away at that point. When you're
Mhm.
in the I don't even know how to describe this, but I think I made a post about this at some point about, like, social media isn't hunting. What I was really trying to say is when you're in the flow state, if you will, of the thing, like, I know in early spring, I like to do some pike fishing at a local pond, and I put my waders on. It's the only way to get back to the spot. I'm standing in water up to my, mid belly, and I'm, like, at water level almost. I'm casting with a MEPS spinner because I don't know shit about fishing, really, other than I know that I'll catch pike on that thing every time. And I get it in close, and all of a sudden, boom, they nail it. I reel it in. I get my little, mouth opener on the pike, pull the lure out, and I'm like, freaking sweet. And it's in that moment when I'm standing in the water, my phone is not accessible. I'm fishing, the pike hits, that dopamine hits, I reel it
Yep.
in, I'm super jacked. I let it go, and I keep repeating that, and it's amazing. At that point in time, all the other shit doesn't matter. None of it matters. Like what someone said or how they did this or whatever. That's it. And same thing with deer hunting. Like in the thick of the moment, the you're the furthest from when you got there, and you're the furthest from when you're going to leave. You're in the middle of the moment, and it's amazing. Like the other stuff doesn't matter. And that's the part that I love, and I was trying to find a way to communicate that. And that's what I try to chase as much as possible. And of course, we're documenting things, we're filming stuff, we're doing posts. We're also participating in the beast that is social. Um, but the real true essence of it is that could all go away tomorrow. I wouldn't give a shit. Like I just wouldn't care. I would actually feel relieved to some degree.
Do you find
Um,
yourself, Eric, some days like just basically telling yourself, I'm not going to. I'm not taking the phone. I'm not filming this. I'm just going to do this for me. None of the other crap matters. This is just for me. Do you ever find yourself doing that? Or
that's
do you still
most
like
of
think everything has to be creation, 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 creation?
No, I mean, Gary Vee talks about Gary Vaynerchuk says, "Document over create, and that'll give you a mountain." I am so awkward with documentation. Like, I'm doing this push-up challenge in the month of April. Even that feels weird to me. I'm doing a nutrition challenge, so I'm trying to document some of that. That feels weird to me. But as a result, I've had people reach out with great information, great tips. There is also power in this stuff in the social realm that is quite incredible. I mean, I had another digital marketer, like a person reach out because they follow someone that was tagging me in the push-up contest. I don't even know this dude. I don't know the other person that well. And now I have a potential, like I create draft boards for like hiring people. And so I have this new person on my draft board that's pretty incredible. And I'm like, you found me because of a push-up contest? That's hilarious. And so I think there's good and there's bad and there's good ways to do things, but I I don't I don't record most of things, like, I suck at it. That's why we hired videographers. I'm like, "I'm not gonna do a good job. Can you just follow me?" Like, because I don't wanna do it. And if I know you're just capturing, then I'll just do whatever I do as if you weren't there, because I don't give a shit. And
Yeah.
that's and all the camera guys we've had have been like, "Wow, you really are who you say you are." Like, you can't make this shit up. Like, I turn the camera on, and it's like, how do you get through a day, Eric? I'm like, yeah, right, exactly. That's what my wife says to me every day. And so
Did your brain fall all the way out your head? The phrase I've heard in my house as well. I can relate to that, Eric.
so I don't know, to answer your question, like I'm a builder, I'm a creator. I love to move quick and do things, and that's just part of who I am. So I like the creating of things. I really do enjoy that process. I enjoy that process more than any sort of output. And then again, going back to, of course, Gary Vee, like love the process. I just love the process. And then it's like I forget which coach said this, but just focus on the game and the scoreboard will take care of itself. Our
Mhm.
scoreboard's doing just fine because we're focused on the game. I'm not focused on the output. I don't care if we get a million followers or views, or I don't care. But I do love doing the thing. So
Yeah, it's really hard to like self-film. Like, and it's awkward, I think, for most people. I mean, I feel lucky that my previous, we'll call it life at this point, my
mhm.
previous life, my previous career in broadcasting, I got real comfortable with talking to a microphone, talking into a camera, because I was literally in it and through every step of social media becoming a thing. Like, I got into broadcasting before MySpace, right? So then the big push was like, "Oh, we all have to be on MySpace, and everybody we have to, reach out to people and because you gotta be where all the people are, right?" Like,
Yeah,
this is what we heard
meet your
forever.
customers where they are,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. And so as every new app and every new thing comes out, you gotta be there, you gotta be there, you gotta be there, and it's like this constant just like, oh, man, like, I got so burned out and tired of that, and I love now that I've got to the space where I'm just like, "No, I'm gonna be here. This is where I am. Find me here, or don't." Like, I'm
Or
not
do
gonna keep,
right,
like,
exactly, I don't care. Yeah.
right, like, because you are gonna burn yourself out by trying to be everywhere, whereas if I can put most of me, like, my best effort into one spot, like, I think of it like your kids, right? They're playing sports. Kids that play every sport are not gonna be the best at every one of those sports, right? Versus a kid that only plays the one sport in, like, year round. He or she, I should say, just plays that sport nonstop. You know what I mean? Like, just because they're doing only that one thing all the time, they're gonna get better at that one thing. Whereas if you spread yourself out, there's only so many pieces of the pie to go around.
Yep.
And yeah, that's why I'm here. That's why I just got so tired of that corporate world and everything, of where I was just like, "No, I need to plan myself to get out of it, but I still wanna be where people are and still create and still make a change and make a difference and inspire people, essentially." I know it sounds corny and weird to say that I wanna inspire, but I like that. I love when I share a tip and someone's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so smart. I love that." Or like one of my YouTube videos that is it is to this point, I just sit back and it just keeps collecting. It's my most viewed every single day, every single month. It brings the most revenue on my YouTube. It just I mean, when I say it's not like I'm making millions of dollars. Like you said, you're not
Yeah,
gonna quit
right,
your
no.
day job
We're
doing this,
making
right?
pennies on our stuff, right?
It was the simplest thing. Like, I took my kayak and showing kind of a different creative way to load it onto a car, truck, SUV, whatever, right? That
Yep.
makes it so you don't have to be the biggest, strongest person to do it. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, that's so smart. I've thought of it. That's so great. Thanks for sharing." I'm like, "Yeah, that's why I'm here. Like, I want to show you. I'd rather you find a way to get your kayak to the lake, to get on the water, to enjoy the water. Whether you just want to paddle around, just want to float on it, you want to fit, whatever you want to do. I want you to get out and enjoy that. So if I can help inspire, help show you a way to do that, that's what I want to do. And
That's
that's what I
awesome.
love about you guys and the whole Okayest brand, as I'd say it, is it is that. It's building community and we're here to uplift each other and we're all better together versus,
We
trying to
said
like
earlier,
gate.
just be a good person. That's like
Yeah.
one of the tenets of stoicism. Just like that's the goal of life is to be a good person. Anytime something's going wrong or bad, or you talk about 2020, like anytime something terrible is happening, that's the best opportunity to be a good person. And like anytime, and when I used to be in customer service when I was in college, and it was, what if someone's really pissed off or they call in really mad? It's like that's the best call because I could take them from here to here if they're already happy.
Right.
Like it's like starting out with golf, and I'm not a golfer. I don't even know why I use these types of analogies, but anybody can just
Because
start.
everyone golfs,
Yeah,
the 2 of us,
you,
that's why. I am the same way, I don't golf. Like,
you could just whack a
fishing is
ball
my
on the
golf.
fairway and with a driver, and anyone can like kind of figure that out. But it's those micro adjustments, like getting good at your putting game on the green. Like that's really hard at some point. It's easy to make those big strides. It's easy to be a good person in bad times. Like it's harder to hold hate in your heart and to hold on to that. And I don't know where some of that stuff comes from, but overall, I mean, the outdoor community is really a great place. People are kind, people are genuine. They're good, hardworking folks like that just love the same thing. So if we're all trying to participate in a shared activity to some degree, that's a good thing. And I'm excited to see again the Camp Okayest podcast come to life. I'm excited to listen to the guests you have on and to really like get people's. You're really good at interviewing folks and making people feel comfortable. So like if folks can let their guard down and just kind of shoot the bull, like that's a great format.
And that's what I've always said, whenever I get, my previous show when I've had some people on, whether it's like the first couple times they've done something, I'm just like, listen, like, we're just gonna chit chat. Like, there might be an agenda. There's most likely not gonna be. Like, we're just gonna chill. Like, we're gonna chat, and the conversation is always gonna go somewhere. And that's the way I've always approached every interview with everything. Like, mentioned my life in radio. So I did a three-person morning show. And of the three of us, there was myself, a female co-host, and another male co-host. The male co-host, he had been in broadcasting longer than me, been around forever, like the most seasoned. He was the greatest about kind of just like asking questions and really great interview, right?
Yep.
My female co-host was newer and was much more like had to have questions and was like, real focused and like, okay, and I've always been the person, I learned this early on, never have an agenda or a layout of I want to talk about this or hit this or ask this question.
That's
Because you
hard.
know what?
That's yeah, it's not a good I mean, it
No, you're
could
never
be
gonna get to it.
potentially, but, like yeah.
So it'd be like,
And then you
"Oh, what do you"
deviate, and then you're like, "We need to go back to this point." It's like, "No, we don't. No, just you
Right.
gotta just go where it takes you." It's like a river. You try to, like, fight the current, it's gonna be a bad outcome. You gotta just paddle with the current as best you can and navigate it, and that's a good dialogue. Those are some of the best chats.
Yeah, and I've said, like, when I was talking about it with amongst 3 of them, is like, "Do you have any" what questions you ask me? I go, "I have nothing prepared. I don't prepare for these things. I just wing it. Just gonna wing it." You know why? Because, like you said, it's the conversation. When you get together with your family and friends, say you're sitting around dinner time with the family, do you have a list set of questions you're gonna ask? And no, it's not a thing.
Yeah. No.
You never do that. You don't go to grandma's house. You don't go around Christmas with the family and be like, okay, here's my questions to ask everybody. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have that. And so I feel like some people that go into interviews with that, they never turn out.
I think there's something
Conversations.
to be said about, like, you could do your research and come prepared with knowing the subject and the topic in general, and that will inform a conversation. So certainly, like, frameworks or bullet points might be good to, like, re-jog your memory. "Oh, that's right, I did wanna talk about this one thing," but that's as far as I'll take it. And a
Yeah.
well-researched guest or if you do your homework, you're gonna be a better interviewer because you kinda know what you're navigating. You've studied the map of you know where the river has the twists and the turns, you know where the rapids are gonna be. Like, those are things you should probably have some awareness of and prepare for. Like, you know me well enough to know, like, that didn't have to happen here. We talk all the time. But there's certain guests where I'm like, "Shit, I gotta probably do a little bit of research here," you know? And others where I'm like, "Nah, I have enough context having been doing this for a decade. I know what we're gonna talk about and how to navigate it."
I'll tell you, some of the hardest people that I've talked to are people that talk all the time. Like music artists, hardest. Sometimes they are the hardest
Interesting.
because, especially if you go off the rails at all, they're so used to like a plan thing.
Mhm.
Nah, nah, we ain't rolling that way.
Interesting. I've always had a
Especially
hard time with,
new.
like, certain,
Especially new up and coming artists, oh my
yeah,
gosh,
different. Interesting.
they're much more difficult to talk to, but,
Well, that'd be a fun, thread for you to pull on depending on the connections you still hold in from that previous life.
there's a
We
couple there. No, there's a few things that will be in the works. There's a lot of surprises that'll pop up in here.
That'll be
I
fun.
guarantee it. I mean, I can already say, coming up in a couple of weeks, I know there's gonna be one of these video, we're gonna do the podcast and we'll have a video of it too. We're gonna do it live on location. Myself and my good buddy John Resnick, we're gonna be in Door County, Wisconsin, the smallmouth capital of the world. Fight me, fight me about it. We're gonna go slam some smallies, and we're gonna do an entire show, just him and I sitting around chit chatting about that. Which, by the way,
That'd
if
be
you want to
cool.
get a little sneak peek of it, here's where I'll like pre-promote another show. Okayest Fisher, they just recently did an episode with one of the guides up in Door County talking about spring fishing and just fishing all species in Door County. You can check that out on the Okayest Fisher
Yeah,
podcast.
that's one of the camera guys, Keegan. He used to be a guide up in Door County. I was like, "You guys should talk to Keegan. He used to be a guide up there." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, shit."
We always forget like these connections we make with people, and you forget that, who you get on and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I still got connections with pro anglers, so we'll have some of those guys they're gonna pop at
I'm
the
sure
show.
Bailey
And
will be a guest on your show. I'd be sad if he wasn't. You gotta get
Bailey
Bailey
will
Ridford
definitely be
on.
here. I have a feeling the Canadian snow leopard is gonna make an appearance at some point in time. Let's see here. I've got a few others I gotta reach out to yet. Like, I just want to get the ball rolling before I reach back up. Like, hey, I got a new thing I'm working on. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
let's come chit chat. And look, that's the thing. Like, everybody in the outdoor space you mentioned are so like nice and welcoming. Easiest people a lot of times. They will
Well,
do just
podcasters
about
hit a
anything.
certain critical mass where it's pretty known now. It's just a matter of scheduling it. When I started in 2013, when I started trying to get guests on, they're like, "So, like, what is it? Like a I have to go to a radio station or how does this work? Like, they didn't even understand what it was.
Right, and
And
that
now we're
my
on the
old
other end
show,
of the
that was, like, the preferred method, like, come
Yeah.
into the studio is something
Yeah,
cool, but,
yeah.
like, now, I prefer this just so much better. I mean, I do have behind me here, I do have a chair, so maybe there'll be an in-studio situation perhaps
Yeah, I
at
got
some
one of
point
those
in
too
time.
in here. You've probably seen it. I have this weird green chair in here. I don't know what the purpose of it
This is,
is.
like, literally, like, the old crappy chair that was, like, in my son's room that, like, we'd sit in and rock him to sleep every night.
That's great.
We
Yeah,
were gonna
yeah,
get rid of it. I was
I
like,
recognize I think we had a chair like that. It eventually fell apart when we moved into this house. I was like, "Damn it." I
probably the
loved it 'cause it
same
was
I think we got it from Target or something, who
yeah,
knows?
it's
Like, I feel like half my life is from Target at this
it's
half my
great.
life is, like, Target, Bass Pro Shops, Omnia Fishing. Yeah, that's
Dick's, Bait Shop in Delafield or
yeah.
yeah, no.
Yeah, so, alright, well, I don't wanna take too much more time. We've kind of already went all over the place, and that's obviously what's gonna happen, but just wanted to get a little intro into what Camp Okayest is and kind of the evolution in, our connection with Okayest Hunter, which, by the way, shout out to you guys. Like, again, a little product shout out here. You sell these, koozies. These are flannel koozies. Freaking the best damn koozie in the world. Like,
It is
keeps your
very
drink cold,
comfortable.
keeps my hand warm. That's the thing, like, people think about it. Your hand's warm, drink stays cold. I can't tell you how many people, like, I've been drinking a beverage around these and like, "What is that?" And I tell them, like, "That is freaking brilliant." So,
It is a fun koozie. We have a guy in Oregon that hand sews them, and he is a CPA by profession, so he does it on the side. And he's like, every time I talk to him, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know if I can get to it," or so they're expensive, like, because he's hand sewing them, and they're not cheap. So we sell them for they're $10. Feel like, who the hell would buy a koozie for $10? Well, everybody, because every time we get them on our site, they sell out. We're trying to find a way to get them mass produced with the same level of quality. We're so particular about our quality
that's
across
the
everything we
problem.
do.
That's gonna
So,
be the problem. But yeah,
yeah,
seriously. And your little logo, dude, brilliant ass logo. I'll say that too.
yeah, it's
So
fun stuff.
yeah, go check
Well,
it out. Okayesthunter.com. Got all their products. They've got that awesome podcast that's kind of the I'm sorry, I'm gonna call you the Godfather from now on. It's gonna be Eric Godfather Clark.
if you wanna call me that. Nicknames have never stuck with me. We'll see how long it lasts.
We'll see. And I know Tubbs is gonna be joining me on here too soon. We'll, I mean, obviously be talking fishing and all the stuff. He's, by the way, just one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met.
He's such
Just
a humble guy.
Yeah, he
He's my
knows so
favorite.
much about so many different things, and he
Yeah,
just is like, "Meh, meh," all the time. That's what I love,
yeah.
Greg.
He's always happy to help people too, which is great. I mean, he goes to a lot of events that literally help people like their first turkey hunt or how to fish, or he brings people on his boat on Michigan. I mean, he's just a stand-up dude.
I'm trying to get him to drag his kayak out and, get him out on the water with me. I've fished on Lake Michigan with him and Matt last year,
Mhm.
which, by the way, speaking of putting stuff aside, we filmed that entire thing, and Matt's like, "When's it get up? When's it up?" I'm like, "I'm waiting till just before salmon season, like, this year."
Yeah, you gotta wait for the right time, you do. We learned that with our first season of, like, we'll see how it goes, and we launched in March about deer hunting, and I wouldn't say it flopped, but it could have been more well received if we would have waited until hunting season, and so we did that with our
Yep.
turkey stuff. We launched our turkey hunting stuff now from last year because it's more relevant. So,
People don't realize that's the way TV and outdoor media works all the time.
yeah,
You
yeah,
you gotta hit hit them when they're in
seasonal.
it. So, yeah, you'll be able to see the 3 of us out on Lake Michigan fishing on my YouTube channel coming up in probably end of June, like mid to end of June.
Yeah, it's
Salmon
about
season
time.
gets going, we're
Yeah.
gonna post
Right
that.
when
So,
Salmonorama kicks off.
that's right, when that's all you're gonna hear them talking about is Salmonorama.
Yeah.
Alright, well, thanks again for, popping in. We'll have you back on, I'm sure, at some point in time, and, thank you for joining us here at camp. I still am trying to figure out how to end this thing. I guess I'm just gonna say, "See you next time." Like, should I have a catchy phrase?
You know, I don't know if you remember, what was it? Epic Mealtime was an old YouTube channel.
Yes! Oh my gosh, those guys were freaking awesome!
Every time they'd end and they're like, "Next week we eat a baby." Or they always say
Oh, yeah,
something weird. So you'd always like, "Next week we eat," they would just make some shit up. And I was always like,
it's brilliant.
I love the end hook. The
Damn,
Hodge twins
now
used
I
to do
wanna
that back in the day. Like they had a saying like, "At the end of the day, this is just my opinion. You do whatever the you want to do." Like, so if there's something like that, I think that'd be cool to always have a main thing that could always be like swapped out with something else. Next week we
next
fish
week,
for
we
next
talk
week
about
we
shooting a baby seal in a barrel.
yeah, I just make some weird shit up. It's
You'll have
great.
to find out, are we gonna do it or not?